Jure Bratkic, the founder and CEO of SkipQ, an innovative mobile platform revolutionizing the travel experience by merging diverse airport services into one seamless app. In this episode, Jure shares his insights on the future plans for SkipQ, including global expansion and continuous improvement through customer feedback. We explore the entrepreneurial spirit that runs in Jure's family, shaped by the history of business ownership under the communist regime in Yugoslavia, and how that upbringing fostered humility and gratitude in his business approach. Jure also reflects on the cultural shocks he experienced transitioning from a closed to a free market economy and the impact that these experiences had on his work with SkipQ. We discuss the challenges and triumphs of bringing SkipQ to airports around the world, the importance of recognizing cultural nuances, and the inspiring journey of a visionary entrepreneur. As always, if you found value in this content, please subscribe to our channel. And now here's my conversation with Jure Bratkic. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week my guest is the founder and CEO of SkipQ, Jure Bratkic. Welcome, Jure.
Welcome. Thank you, David, for having me today.
Yeah,
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks so much for being here. Can you tell us what SkipQ is and how it came to be?
Yeah, so SkipQ is a global mobile platform marketplace. And what we do is we merge all the services and vendors which participate inside and outside airports on a single mobile platform, meaning that as a user, you can pre-purchase any service or any merchandise in advance as then you pass through an airport, right? And that goes from parking to transport, eSIM, that's outside an airport, and then inside, right? Duty-free stores, food and so bars, restaurants, lounges, baggage, fast tracks, pretty much everything, like the entire ecosystem of an airport inside.
Okay.
Came around. The idea came because originally from Europe, from country Slovenia, and at least twice a year, I go back, visit mom and dad, right? And so obviously you have different routes, but usually I start at LAX, and then there is one major hub in Europe, and then the final destination, Ljubljana. And every time I go and I needed something, right? Like all of a sudden I realized, well, my phone started getting full of different apps of particular airports, but there was no like a sort of like a big, like a really app which would merge all these on one platform, right? And then I thought like, well, why don't we do that? So the idea of SkipQ came around.
Okay. Wow. So it was born out of just the inconvenience of traveling and getting services, and right. We all know that stress of even trying to get a meal between flights. You see a long line and security and whatever else you're dealing with.
And also, right, yeah, correct. That's one thing. And the other thing is also, let's say, like talking about an example, right? People often connect that actually access to a lounge is either because you're flying business or first class, or because you have a certain credit card, right? And that actually allows you to get into a lounge. Well, it's not true, right? You can get an access to a lounge even if you're flying basic economy, right? And the better part, the best part is actually even that you can buy these in advance, so that when you come there and you have, let's say, like a long layover or so, it doesn't matter. You bought already your entrance, and so you just go in, and nobody asks you, do you have a certain, like I said, credit card? Do you fly business or first class? No, you go in and you enjoy yourself, right?
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah, these are things which.
So, I mean, this is a unique idea, and clearly nothing like that existed prior. So what was the process like when you have such a big idea that's has so many moving parts with air travel and all these different airport services. Like, what was the process like in terms of getting that started and setting up all these partnerships?
Well, the very first, and probably the most crucial point was I knew I cannot do it alone, right? Because it's such a big operation and task that actually I knew I can't do it alone. And so I called up two of my friends and I said, guys, are you interested in, starting this journey? One, Saba, she's in India, in New Delhi. And then the other one, Justin, unfortunately, during the process, actually, then he sort of like he had different obligations towards his family, and we stayed in touch, but he couldn't be a co-founder anymore. But me and Saba then literally picked up the task and started working on it. And it was first to define how to approach airport ecosystems, right? How do we actually even get in touch with them and start learning along the process how airports work, right? How important it is, who owns them? Is that governmentally? Are they private? Is that mix of both? Who do we need to talk to, and how convoluted sometimes their processes are before someone even makes a decision and actually, tells you yes, no, maybe. And then are there any workarounds, and how can we do that? So that actually getting to know the industry first, in a sense of like airports, and then completely separately, it was okay, the architecture of our app, how and what we should, and then the inventory, right? How to start pulling the inventory in to be able to offer something to users, right? So then today, when we are live, that we have an inventory of 700 airports around the world, which seems a lot, but in reality is very little. And then the second part is, because you're global, you very soon realize two things. Well, the buying power of people and the people's habits, how they travel, is significantly different from not just from continent to continent, but from country to country. And so you get to know, you start realizing patterns, how people travel, how much they are willing to spend at airports, right? And then from there, also because you're global, well, you don't want that app is only in one language, especially because, right, overlapping with the buying power, you want to actually give people that experience in their mother tongue. And so we went out with 4 different languages by default, which is English, Spanish, Russian, and Arabic. So we tap, right, if you're looking just by languages, a lot of the continents and the world itself. And then the incorporation itself, right? That actually we started incorporation in the US, but being global and now talking about, the culture, talking about having global partners, it's important to have incorporation also in different parts of the world. And so Dubai, Europe, and then at some point also like Southeast Asia or like Far East, kind of like that, will happen as well. There, no, in a nutshell,
Okay.
the answer. Yeah.
So 700 airports you have, like you said, that sounds like a lot. How many airports are there globally?
4,000.
4,000. Okay.
So let's say we are around 20, good 20%, man, somewhere there.
Okay.
That's sort of like where we are. Yeah.
When you bring an airport on, does that mean that every service within that airport is loaded on your
No,
platform?
no, unfortunately not, because actually you have right. So Skip Queue actually, as of now, right now, someone downloads our app and starts exploring. We have 4 services available, which is transport, so to from airports or within an airport. We have meet and greet. So imagine like people who actually travel the first time, older people, people who maybe don't speak the language when they travel, right? Whenever, so they need some sort of assistance, someone who actually comes, picks them up and actually takes them from a gate, or from after they pass the, let's say, immigration, right? It takes them around the airport, so actually they don't get lost, right? Or when they arrive, that someone is actually there, meet and greet. That's also a component then with transfer. But meet and greet, then eSIM card. So actually your phone, right, when you travel, you go to a different country, you don't need to physically change the SIM card, but it's a software. You just enable it, and then your phone starts acting with your, let's say, in this case, let's say US phone number, but it doesn't matter. It can be your German phone number, but you come to the US, you enable the software, and your phone starts acting as a local one. And right, you can do calls, data, everything, right? And then we have lounges. So transfer, eSIM, meet and greet, and lounges, right? Now, obviously, as we grow and as we are adding the services in, the inventory, certain airports actually becomes bigger and bigger, right? And so aside of these four, then comes the baggage, so the baggage meaning handling in the airport, and from your house, that someone takes your bags already in advance. So let's just say that I'm flying in a month, but I packed 14 days before and I have my luggage ready. So that someone comes, picks up my luggage, takes it to the airport. The luggage goes through the scanning and all that already. And so I pick it up at my final destination. So I don't need to, on the day of departure, I only go with my small backpack or a purse, whatever, right, to the airport. And I pick up my luggage then at my final destination. Same way coming back to the US. So that's actually one thing. Then the fast track, right, that you certain scanning processes at the airport that you can go by faster. You don't need to wait in those lines. Then like duty frees, like I said, bars, restaurants, other shops. Then we just signed a contract with, actually NDA, and about to sign a contract also with few companies, several companies, which are offering the events. So actually, let's say that you go for vacation to, doesn't matter, someone comes to the US, let's just say to San Francisco or New York or Detroit, whatever, right? And there are certain events at that time, like is that a concert, is it a sport event, right? So they can book that already in advance, but that globally, right? Even if you go to Hong Kong, for example, right? Okay, what's happening in Hong Kong while I'll be there? Oh, there is a concert of, I don't know, this group, which I would really like to see. Bam, you buy it. So a lot of components which will come on the SkipQ app in the following probably like 6 months, when we push like 2 new releases out, that then will be, it becomes really like this super app, sort of like one-stop shop for travelers.
Okay. And what's the process been like in terms of getting people on board? Like you said, you didn't even know how, in the beginning, how to approach these airports and the components within the travel industry. What's it been like getting them to buy into this new idea and signing people up?
So I'll say like, it was with some, it was pretty challenging, because actually it's the twofold question answer, right? Are we able to introduce the idea correctly so they understand? And that's actually at the end really turned out. We have to make it so easy for them to understand that actually it makes them immediately that aha moment. Yeah, we want to be part of it, right? It is true that sometimes certain airports come to us and says, look, we are just technologically not ready yet. Okay, we stay in touch once you guys are. I mean, alternatively, we can also develop that for you. But, right, if these are certain processes on their end through which they need to go through, fine, right? But with some it was easier, with some it's a little harder. It comes down to the ownership of the airport, because actually that's then their onboarding, that defines then the onboarding process or the partnership. And so it's really, and sometimes also on people, right? You see, I'll say like that, but that's in any business and in any position, right? You can have people in certain positions sitting there for decades, and they got stuck in a moment somewhere, and they never moved with time, right? And so it's very hard then to have conversations, because the lenses are, well, we're doing how it was in 1980s. Okay, well, it's 2024, right? And so you see that struggle, you see that like inability or hard to change, to adjust, right? Because maybe for whatever reason that 1980s still work for them, and there is no need for that, right? They don't feel that there is a need, right? But that's just because they don't know the other side, right? And because they might still be okay. And so it's a really, sometimes the conversations are ongoing, and sometimes it actually happens like, bam, yeah, I understand. Here, tomorrow you'll have a contract, just sign it. Really, like that was, for example, London Heathrow, an amazing guy we connect with there. His name is Tim. It was 5-minute conversation, but 5-minute conversation out of which 2 we were talking about collaboration. 3 minutes was like, so how's the weather in London, in Southern California, and what do you do otherwise? Like the guy got it immediately, said like, that's actually where we want to be part of, like right away. Certain experiences are, I would never say, because you have these big airports where it's they turnover, it's like millions, billions of dollars, but they get it right away. And some of them takes a little longer.
Wow, and in London Heathrow, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the major worldwide airports, right? Particularly for that region.
Yeah. I met them last year in a conference in Vienna, in Austria, and it was a guy from Heathrow, and kind of like approached him. We were not even live yet. At the time we were brand new, right? I was learning the industry. I was listening to like a big shots talking. And then I approached him. I said, this is actually the idea. This is actually what we are about. This is actually what we are building. He said, you know what? I'll connect you with one guy. I think you guys need to talk. They came back to California. I shoot an email. Like I said, team scheduled the meeting. I don't know, let's say within 14 days, 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes. And we are right now, obviously, SkipQ is B2C, right? Well, we are opening also B2B platform by the end of this year. And when Tim was the first one, I told him the idea, hey, you know what, we would like to open B2B. He just said, let me know when I send you the paperwork to sign. That was it, like nothing else. Like it's a really different, with some people, it's different completely ball game, like, how they connect like really fast.
Well, that's inspiring too, especially for other entrepreneurs where like you never know what can happen if you don't ask, if you don't shoot your shot, right?
Yeah, correct. Because the maximum what you can get is a no, right? And that's fine. It's okay, right? Sometimes certain doors stay closed for a reason, and they will open once they see other doors getting open. You see that, right? Because it's like, oh, do you partner with airport such and such? Yes. Okay. Then we will do it as well. Oh, you don't? Okay, well, we cannot. All right, it's fine. We'll get there.
Love that attitude. And let's get into some of your background too. So you grew up and spent the early part of your life in Slovenia?
Correct. Yes, I was I was born in a country which doesn't exist anymore. It was called country Yugoslavia. And it's sort of like a squeeze between Italy on the west, Austria on north, Hungary on the east, and then, you know, down Romania, Bulgaria, Greece at the bottom. That was actually Yugoslavia. 1991 came around. We had a war for independence. Maybe a lot of people remember that war in Bosnia, war in Croatia. We had a little bit war also in Slovenia. It's just small, tiny 10 days. And then, you know, went through schooling there, mechanical engineering. And then, I mean, still have mom and dad there. 2 brothers are in Europe. But at some point, just kind of like decided, hey, I think, you know, the entrepreneurial path sort of like led me to the US, came to the US 2003. And then since then here, like very much involved in the business world, which I enjoy really very much.
Attention manufacturers and e-commerce sellers. Is fulfillment a headache for you? Whether you're fulfilling in-house and you know you need to outsource, or you're with another 3PL and you know you deserve better service, Easy DC 3PL can help. We offer personal service, fast response time, and we're flexible to meet your unique needs. Get in touch today and find out how we can help you. So have you always had that entrepreneurial desire? Like, can you remember that growing up? Like the just that want to be in business?
So I think a little bit of that runs in our genes, family genes, that, you know, having your own company, having being sort of like your own, having your own business. So both on my mom's and my dad's side, obviously there were different times. You know, by mom's side before World War II, very strong, very, very strong business. And then unfortunately after, well, the World War II started, shut down, and after World War II, the regime which came to power at that time in Yugoslavia, communism, didn't allow at that time my great-grandfather to continue the business. But I guess the gene sort of like was transferred continuously all the way to, obviously, to my generation. And my dad's side as well, right? He was born on the border with Italy, and his mom, today would call it like a small business owner, right? Continuously, and it was also, again, very hard because of the regime. And, you know, I think that's actually where the gene of how to adjust, how to get around with certain restrictions, or how to be creative. That's actually where that gene was sort of like a brushed and peeled. But yeah, so it is present sort of like within the family, I would say, like that. So it was always in me, I guess, from the little one.
And was it like growing? So when you grew up in a communist regime, basically, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then going through that and having these entrepreneurial aspirations, right? That led you to come to the US. So what was it like when you first got here and coming out of that regime and seeing the opportunities that were available?
It's always a cultural shock, right? Throughout my, up until now, actually, I had probably like 2 like a really major ones. One was that, right, when the market opened up, right? So you're growing up in an environment where you have, let's just say, one type of chocolate, one type of bread, one type of milk, right? You don't know what, I don't know. I remember in school, in elementary school, we had like we had English classes, and we had this book, right? A textbook, and I think on the front page, or maybe on the first one inside, was a picture of an ATM machine. You're like, you know, like, what is an ATM? Like, how come that the machine gives you money? Like, what is that, right? I'll never forget that. And that was back in 1980, 1984, I think so, 85, right? As I think like a second class, so in elementary, right? So it was different, right? When you come, and then 1991, the market opened up, right? We became independent, okay, the market opened up. But it was a very slow transition. And unfortunately, today, looking back, you see like a bad characters came to power, or came to power, not political power necessarily, but just to power. And then you see that transition where, you know, today I recognize when countries go through these sort of like a changing of regimes, and then all of a sudden, like a certain caste comes to power in businesses, in the industry, and you know that this is often related to a lot of right, they are not skilled, they were just at the right time at the right spot, but they have connections. And then what happens often is actually these are bribes, this is incompetence, but now people which are incompetent are running the companies, right? And then they only think, well, they know, well, I'll sell it, right? It's not doing business. It's not like when we talk about here selling a company because you build it, you grow it, you made it, you know, to a certain degree, to a certain extent. No, it's not. And so went through that, you see that these are the things which you remember. So then when I came here, you know, and obviously different market, the opportunities and the resources available. You know, it was obviously the first few years were in a sense of like an adjustment, right? Because you have to get used to, because all of a sudden you realize, so all these things are available, possible, and doable. And so, yeah, it's definitely a cultural shock. That's for sure.
And you, prior to SkipQ too, you had a successful entrepreneurial career, and you made an exit
Yeah.
prior. So do you think that experience growing up, where there was such restriction, like you said, just one of everything, the closed market, that type of thing, and then coming and seeing free market economics available, and do you think that that was an advantage, where you were just
Yeah,
you know,
because
more motivated to succeed?
well, two things, don't forget, right? Like the two things I'll say first, right? Growing in that environment, right? Like as I was a kid, and let's just say that we are allowed to cross the border to Italy or to Austria per se, right? Sort of like to Western type countries, right? Like every time when we were coming back, we were smuggling something in. It was like either we had our new pair of jeans on, or jackets on, or coffee hidden somewhere in the car. That was the reality at that time of the country Yugoslavia, like where people lived, right? It was continuously, because there was not available. And so when you come, you start appreciating when you change the environment, and you know that's available. You don't need to hide per se. You don't need to you don't need to smuggle, you don't need to right, it's about, you go, you pay, you try, but at the same time the other thing, it makes you humble, because actually once you change the environment, right, it doesn't come today. When I go to a grocery store today, to go to whatever, I go and buy a pair of jeans, right, it's not the entitlement, the sense of entitlement. It's simply that arrogancy, entitlement, right, combination. That simply, well, you know, I'm entitled to have that. It should be, right, available, right? You are thankful for that. You're thankful for actually having the opportunity to go there, that it's available, that there is a person who helps you, right? That's actually what it is. And when you're doing business, regardless of everything, right, being humble, being polite, being open to listen to the other side, understand the other side's hustle. And that being, let's say we're going to buy a pair of jeans, you know, that customer service person there, right? These are the things actually where then significantly help you when you're doing business, when you approach certain people and you start talking with them. They can still say no, and that's fine. It is just that it's not that hard stop and hard no, saying no, we never want to deal with you, but it's like now, right? You translate, okay, maybe they're not ready now. Fine, right? Can we come back in a year? Sure. All right. So the door literally doesn't shut in an essence, right? There is still a little bit like a open, right? And I think that's one definitely side of that you're thankful, and actually that component when you come across that I would say, yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Interesting. So in essence, too, like you said, that experience growing up and not having access to things that so many people take for
Yeah.
granted
Mhm.
made you humble and
Yeah.
changed the way you look at business.
Mhm.
And then fast forward to growing something like Skip Q, right? Like that mentality is
Yeah,
almost
man.
necessary, right? When you're
Mhm.
trying to, change people's paradigm about this app you have for air
Correct.
travel.
Correct. Because we come across, right, being global, we come across different. I just returned from Dubai. I was in Dubai attending also a conference, and it was a lot of people from Middle East, that area, right? And had a conversations with obviously with people from that area before, and companies and so forth, right? But when you meet them in person, when you sit down and have a conversation, it comes down to literally when someone gives you a business card, right? Like we are, like I'll say like that, right? Like just say this is a business card, right? Like so we're like kind of like here, man, this is my business card. You give it with one hand, right? Like kind of like this. Here, grab it, right? When you see a person, right, who is actually has a multi-billion-dollar business and is sitting next to you and gives you the business card like that, holding with both hands, and bows when he gives you the business card, and I'm a nobody there. You realize, the importance also to, let's say, this is a random example, but right, you grab his business card with both hands. You also bow. You say thank you. These are certain manners, certain etiquettes, business etiquettes where it makes a difference. I could like here actually I would grab, okay, thank you, right? I would grab like also with one hand, thanks, right? But let me give you mine, right? And it's kind of like this sort of like a process in a sense of like okay, hands are flying here, there. No, there is a pause, right? With them, sometimes with different cultures, there is a pause in your communication, because actually that pause indicates it's you recognize each other's um not value, but each other's struggles, path you went through, struggles you went through, right? And it shows that also I'm thankful for you accepting my, let's say, just in this case, like my business card. Doesn't mean anything. In a sense, it's a piece of paper. But that moment, that transaction which happens between two people, right? It can define a lot further down the line, right? Because different cultures, certain things, it's different importance, right? And so being global and exposed globally, right? And when you connect with people around, that's why also my co-founder, for example, Saba, she's from India, right? Like I said, and I'm gonna say well-rounded in that region of the world, right? A lot of times, I said, I think Saba, it would be way much better you handle that, right? And she being a woman, right? Sometimes you also see across a culture where, you know, um, woman is seen as a second-class citizen, or the attitude like that, right? And so how do you navigate, right? Like, what is your focus? How do you approach then, um, such conversations? And it becomes, it's an interesting process. You realize how different and yet how small the world at the same time with the globalization is, right? But it becomes very, very, sometimes very interesting, very challenging, and very fun as well, right? You have the whole palette of colors.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you mentioned where you are right now with SkipQ, and you've got about 700 airports and a few services. So what's next coming in the next like 6 to 12 months in terms of what you have on deck?
So by the end of summer, we are releasing the second, I mean, we are pushing to existing app way much more inventory, way much more services available, right? More airports. So that's actually sort of like very immediate. Then this midterm, the vision and the goal is that by the end of the year, we release B2B vertical of SkipQ. And then I'll say a little longer term, obviously, you know, establish the brand, getting really known globally. That's really a big task now, and that's, you know, it requires a continuous work, focus, dedication, right? That's the smart, probably like more strategic moves, right? And you know, hopefully at some point actually the word SkipQ will become part of our vocabulary for people who travel or when they travel. Just kind of like, you know, the word Google, it became like part of our vocabulary. Like, I'll just Google it, right? But it's the name of the company in reality. So let's hope that, you know, in 5 years, Dave, when we have another conversation or so, be like SkipQ. I just SkipQ, right? I travel, I just SkipQ. That's the focus at some point.
Building the name recognition and just having it be that type
correct.
of
Correct.
that type of
You have
okay.
like that global imprint. You have the global imprint, and actually people know how to use, like they know where to go and they will get what they are looking for.
How much penetration has there been within the U.S. Airports?
The penetration a little bit. I'll say it's getting there. I'm not going to say it's can be significantly more. Absolutely. But whatever we have, I mean, we are thankful. Would it be? I think it's more in a sense. Certain parts of the world, I think they are way ahead. I think once, and it's also on us actually getting to the right people. Like I said at the beginning, US has its penetration. I'll probably say we have certain major airports, at least presence there, absolutely. But I think a lot could be done and will be done in the future as well for the US market.
Okay. All right. And so if people want to download it, people are traveling and they want to see if it's available in their area, the app is just SkipQ. Is that right?
SkipQ, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So SKIP letter Q within
correct.
your ad, Google or Apple App Store.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And if people want to get in touch with you, Jure, and learn more about it, ask questions, or even if there's a potential partnership.
Yeah. So that's also one of the things, right? Even though that I'm CEO, but I've learned over the past 20 years, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what's your position in the company. Open to to customers. They can send an email. It's my name at skiptq.com, right? So Jure at skiptq.com. And you know, always available. I always reply to all emails, like answering calls. Like, it's not having that touch with, you know, with my friends, because that's actually how I see our users, right? I don't know who comes around, what knowledge that person, what they might tell me, right? Because it's at the end of the day, different people, different experiences, different knowledges, right? You gotta be open. You have to be open to listen and appreciate. Actually, it doesn't matter. Is that a critique? Can be positive, negative. That's fine. Ideas, hey, right? There's a lot of people out there with brilliant ideas, or just with who wants to help. That's it. And that help can come with a constructive critique, and that's great. I love that, because who says that whatever we're doing is the best possible? Not me. So in that sense, it's very always open. I can reach out to me via LinkedIn, via social platforms directly, however they want. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a refreshing outlook on business from a CEO, for sure, in terms of always being open to that feedback because you can use it
Yeah,
to learn, grow, and get better.
correct, correct. That's
Okay.
anytime, anytime. That's for sure. That's for sure.
All right. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone as well. Okay.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, Jure, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We really
Likewise,
appreciate it.
likewise. Yeah, again, thank you for having me. Thank you, Dave, for your time and
Yeah.
decide actually to have me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we'll link everything in the show notes, and SkipQ is the app. Check that out if you're traveling and see if it's available in your area. And that is all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.